You are listening to the One Day at a Time Recovery Podcast. On this podcast, my guests share their stories of alcoholism, addiction, and how they recovered so that you can too. My hope is that you find the inspiration and resources you need to let go of what's holding you back so that you can transform into the person you were always meant to be. Ready? Here we go. Hey friend, welcome to the podcast. There are a couple of resources that I have to share with you just in case you found the podcast. There is a free guide on my website called How to Quit Drinking, 30 Tips for Your First 30 Days. After nearly 30 years of being sober myself and helping thousands of people get sober, I created a guide that has practical tips on how to start your recovery journey. Everything from how to prepare your home, what to do if you get a craving, how to talk to your friends and family, and so much more. It's my gift to you, and if you have any questions, DM me on Instagram at Arlena Allen. I read every single message, and I promise to personally respond. You are not alone in this. To access the free guide, just visit SoberLifeSchool.com. The other resource is for my sober girlies. There's a free private women's group on Facebook that's tied to the podcast. It's where I share books, videos, quotes, other podcasts, and anything that I personally consume to support my own personal growth. I'm definitely a self-help junkie, so if you need suggestions, support, recommendations, come visit me there too. Just do a quick search in Facebook on One Day at a Time Private Women's Group. Today's guest is Kate Baily. She's the co-author of 2 books, Love Yourself Sober and Love Your Sober Year. She is also the host of the Love Sober podcast. We'll be talking about how she got sober without a traditional 12-step program. The books, which are so practical and rich with powerful insights that will change how you think about living sober. I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. So without further delay, please enjoy this episode with Kate. Well, Kate, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. It's so lovely to see you, Arlena.
Oh, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you online for a long time, but even longer in person. It's been a couple years since the Miami She Recovers event.
Yeah, and I just have this vision of us all jumping into the swimming pool with massive pants that said no shame on them. I can't think of anyone there without having that image in my head.
That is hilarious. Man, that was a lot of fun just floating around with the girls chatting all day, eating junk food. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So much fun. Well, listen, this is an encore appearance for you. I don't remember how long ago it was. I'll leave a link to your first episode where you really dive into your story. I think we were talking about your first book back then, The Love Sober. What's the full title of the first book?
The first title is Love Yourself Sober.
There it is.
There it is. And it's a self-care guide to alcohol-free living for busy mothers.
Brilliant.
So that was very much the kind of speaking to, at the time, the kind of mummy wine culture that was going on, especially in Britain, that as I was experiencing it.
Yeah.
And some of those, that sort of foundational, what that kind of foundational self-care looked like for me and for Mandy. I wrote it with Mandy Manners in terms of that being a carer. I think that was it, calling out the cultural stuff and speaking to us mums with probably younger kids, because we've grown up, kids are grown up,
Yeah.
this is a few years ago now. So yeah.
Yeah, man, that mommy wine culture is alive and well here in the
Yeah.
US. Yeah, I'm sure it is there too. It's funny how when we transfer to the sober life and surround ourselves with sober people, sober material, it feels like mainstream comes with us, but it doesn't. Like the
Yeah.
mainstream is still very strong in, encouraging mothers to drink
Yeah.
as a way of coping with the stressors of having young children.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. And it's funny, isn't it? You do feel like that. Sometimes I'm really surprised that people are still buying into it. And then I'm like, oh, yes. Yeah. I know, I live in my little sober bubble, kind of happily bobbing away. But no, it's alive and well here too. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. No, listen, and that's the point, is that we are able to create and cultivate a world, a life of our own that we're at the center of, right? And we
Yeah.
can be we can take responsibility and cultivate the life we want. You and I are both examples of that. So, but let's talk a little bit about how we got here. I'm gonna play a fun little game I like to call the lightning round, which is always really slow. I'm pretty sure my listeners are sick of hearing me saying that. But when you first got sober, was there a book that really helped you start your journey?
Yeah, it was The Sober Revolution by Lucy Rocker.
The Sober Revolution.
And she is the founder of Soberistas. And that was
Oh,
the first website in the UK. Well, I always say it's the first site when I Googled, Am I an alcoholic for about the millionth time at 3 a.m., that fateful day in 2012. It was the first time I'd seen a website that didn't scare the living bejesus out of me. It looked like a
wow.
magazine. I was like, okay, I can come here. It feels like a magazine. Simple as that. Very shallow, very visual for me. It's like the look of it. I'm on board, right? Didn't
Shallow
have
and
a
visible.
triangle with an eye on it or anything like that. Just had a flower.
No Illuminati sign.
No, I'm fine with the Illuminati now, but I wasn't then.
Didn't feel cultish or anything. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of aversion to a lot of the traditional ways of getting sober, but it's so nice that there are new ways that speak to women specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was it about the messaging, do you think, that attracted you? Was it a message of hope, or it was
Mm.
like a new way, or what was it that attracted you?
Yeah. I think there were a couple of things. I had in my past, just briefly, I have religious trauma. Let's go
Mm,
straight in for that jugular. So the traditional roots were they were traumatic for me. So I tried a couple of
yeah,
meetings. As soon as I
yeah,
mentioned God, I was out the door. Like I was
yeah.
just like, ah. It was not accessible to me. It wasn't accessible to me as someone who'd had that experience. I didn't, I'm also, I'm a writer, and I'm very sensitive to language.
Mm,
And I knew that if certain words didn't gel with me, I wouldn't do it. Very bloody
yeah,
minded. But I was like, no, I'm not having any labels. I didn't like the word recovery because I was like, well, this feels like discovery. We've come a long way in terms of semantics and
yeah.
sort of the sort of patchwork element, haven't we? And this kind of but back then, like back 12 years ago, and like you're like you've been sober 30 years, haven't you? It's like
Almost, yeah.
amazing. So, but it felt very, yeah, so soberistas, it felt like positive, it felt like hope, it
Mm,
felt like an attractive choice. It was a move towards goal rather than just a desperation, and the language was soft enough
yeah.
for me to get on board.
Yeah, I like that idea of moving towards something instead of sort of the deprivation
Yeah.
mentality is good. Yeah, I had a fair amount of religious trauma, but when I got sober, there was nothing else. And I was so desperate. I was like,
Yeah,
whatever
right.
you say, I will do
Yeah.
whatever you say.
Yeah.
I think we had different kinds of religious trauma, so mine was easily overcome. But so you joined Soberistas
Yeah.
and you were able to find all the elements required for let's not call it recovery.
I'm all right with recovery now. I've got over it now.
Oh, okay. But anyway, like that
Yeah.
healing part, you were able to stop drinking, and
Yeah.
did you have to go through that process of deciding whether you could moderate or not?
Oh my God. I mean, I've been doing that for decades anyway, that on off, on off.
Trying to
But
moderate, yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And yeah, so what I did is it was like, okay, I've got to do this. It felt like a life raft. Someone had thrown me a life ring when I first sent up a blog. It's before the social media thing had happened. And I did, but I didn't have, and now we would call them those recovery tools. It was like I'd got some of it. So I'd got the connection, I'd got
Mm.
community. I was very fighty. So I was still in my fight mode. I was like, I'm going to do
So
this and I'm going to be
rebellious.
rebellious, and I am. And
I like that
but
about you. You're a little spicy for a UK girl.
spicy. Um, but after about a year, I did that thing, right, where the bad habits crept back in. Didn't have any self-care. So all of the stuff that then I went on to write about, discover, explore, that came in sobriety 2.0 for me. It was like,
Got it.
okay, this was the first big stint. It was just a year. And then after a year, I did that thing of like, oh, I think I'm fine now. I've done a year. Um, I've read lots of books. I had a lot of head knowledge. I didn't know anything about my nervous system.
Mm.
Still didn't have self-compassion. So I didn't have the toolkit basically. And surprise, surprise, the stress built up. And then I went, and I really thought, I was convinced that I knew everyone else had said, no, don't do it. But I was like, no, I am the one person that will get away with this. And I wasn't. I was like,
I'm unique,
I'm unique, I'm special. And yeah, the
which
boost
is
chatter
true.
started immediately. It
Mm.
it started immediately. And I was so gutted. I was like, oh God, they were right. They were right. They were right. So a couple of years on and off with long sober stints during that time, a lot of self-development was going on. Um, and so I, I studied the science of happiness. Like I knew that
Mm.
looking back, I studied to be a coach. I studied the science of happiness. Once I'd got some good sober time under my belt in 2.0, I I realized that the nervous system was a piece. So I studied with Irene Lyon, I don't know if you know Irene, but
Oh, her name sounds familiar.
amazing. She does the neurobiology of stress, all that nervous
Ooh.
system stuff. Um, and I started to put together, I discovered Tara Brach, the
Oh,
reign of self-compassion, which changed my life. It was like that
yes.
changed my life, having a self-compassion practice.
Yeah.
So slowly, 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 these bits were coming. I was gathering my little rocks in the stream, and I felt like, okay. And so the day that I discovered Tara Brach actually and listened to the Reign of Self-Compassion, it was my last day one, touch wood, touch all the wood, which is like 8 years ago. So hopefully,
Touch of the wood.
yeah, touching all the wood.
Listen, that has a different meaning in the US. We say knock on wood because wood is something else.
I don't think I know. Oh, I'm so not touching all the wood. I'm a menopausal, and then we'll go into that in a bit.
Listen, we're going to talk about menopause. We probably should have talked about that right up front. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about menopause.
Yeah.
I told you this lightning round was very slow, but I'm curious, do you have like a go-to mantra or quote that you live by? Do you have like guiding principles? What, like on a day-to-day basis, is there something that's kind of guiding you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that question.
Uh,
It's so a yoga practice.
ooh,
I've
good.
had a yoga practice, so that is daily. I have a mantra. I've got a few that cycle around. Um, I say to myself when I'm the inner perfectionist is kicking off, I'm sober and the rest is good enough. Chop wood,
Oh,
carry
yes.
water. Like this too shall pass. Those kind of I love a mantra because they're such great mental hooks. There
Yeah.
was one, and I love dishing them out to people. Like when I'm working with my clients, I'm like a real mantra peddler because I just find them such good mental hooks. They're like little
Yeah.
visual aids for a busy mind and for the addictive brain.
Yeah.
Um, and what else do I do? Like I do journaling. And I've started working with Tammy Salas, who's an amazing artist, women's artist in recovery. And I joined her community earlier on this year because I was like, I need something else in my toolkit.
Yeah.
Now that has been transformational for me.
Mm.
As I had a car crash last year, and I've had some ongoing trauma within the family, and it came to my attention that about a year and a half ago I couldn't process fast enough. So I took myself off to therapy, took myself off to EMDR,
Oh,
and
brilliant.
I started doing this art practice where I start working with a word. I learnt some journaling techniques with her, some art, creative journaling, paint, making loads of mess. I did that. This one next to me,
It's beautiful.
like, I mean, I just
Matches
make
your
a lot of
sweater.
mess. Thank you. And then what I would do is I'd go stomping in the woods with my dogs, and I'd listen to music, sensory stacking, and I can
Mm.
shift my nervous system, and whatever stuff has landed on me that I haven't processed, I could, I can metabolize it. So I would say to that question, I have such a kind of complex, complicated, and high maintenance self-care routine now.
Girl, me too.
Um, I have to,
I know.
man.
I'm
I
so
have
high
to.
maintenance.
I'm so high maintenance. I don't mind it. I quite like it, really.
I know. Yeah, I mean, we
What
can justify it. We got to practice what we preach,
Yeah.
right?
And
Like
we
we're,
gotta find the things that work. So
yeah.
that bit, I mean, that's an hour a day that I walk the dogs, I get the nature, I get the awe, and I will be metabolizing some word or
Oh,
some feeling, and I will do voice notes. I might then write about it in the Substack. I do a Substack.
oh,
I will journal about it and I will paint about it. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, and that
I love
seems to
it.
just kind of clean the pipes.
Clean the channel so that we can receive
Yes,
inspiration. And
yes.
yeah, listen, you said so many things right there. I love
Mhm.
this idea of rotating tools,
Mm.
right? Like you mentioned several different practices. I love EMDR, but metabolizing feelings and processing all that stuff. I feel like it's important to rotate some of these
Yeah,
tools because they can get rote
yeah.
and stagnant. You're not really, I don't, I'll be using a particular, like I like to do manifestation journaling, but if
Mm.
I do it for too long, like months, like it loses
It
its
loses it.
emotional
Yeah,
impact on me. And it's the feelings, like they say, focus on the feelings that you want to attract,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
release all the rest. And I'm currently thinking about, it's so funny you said the word awe, like
Mm.
cultivating awe in your life. And that's something that is really up for me today. I was just journaling today about how do I cultivate more awe.
Mm.
It always
Yeah.
seems like it's about being present, being in nature, moving your body, metabolizing all the stressors. Because we have a lot of stress in our life, and
Mm.
I don't know anybody who doesn't have a lot of stress in their life.
Mm.
I mean, I think that's
Yeah,
just the nature of the times
yeah,
that we're in. So we really need a way to process that stress
yeah.
so that we can respond, not react, so that we can live peacefully,
Mm.
detach when necessary. Because
100%.
my little triggers get all inflamed, and sometimes I spiral out and they take me down. So
Mhm.
I love all the things that you just mentioned. And by the way, remind me to leave uh, link in the show notes for the Substack. We're going to leave links to all your things because
Yeah,
you have a
thank
lot.
you.
You do a lot to help the
Oh,
recovery community. Service is
oh,
really big
thank
for
you.
you. Yeah, yeah, keeps us sane. Um, okay, that covers the self-care practice too, because I'm in my yoga girl era myself. I was almost thinking I needed to get a tattoo,
Mm.
another tattoo or
Mhm.
something. I don't
I'm
know, but
so that's I've been Googling tattoos this week. Yeah, yeah, I gotta go for it.
what is it with yoga and tattoos? Like I have one, but I can't see
Yeah.
it, so I forget that it's
Mm.
there. But I want one for my arm. Maybe,
Do
maybe
you know
not.
we are being those queen agers, aren't we? It's like that 55, right? Queen age, tattoo,
Yes.
yoga, badass situation going on.
Yeah, I think it's been a
Swimming.
good almost 10 years since I got my very first one. So I was like 45 before I got
Yeah,
my
me too.
first like real tattoo. My first tattoo was eyeliner. That didn't really count.
Mm.
Anyway, all right, let's talk about important things. So we're in that age. There's those of us that are, man, it seems like I don't know if it's just me because of my age, but I'm seeing a lot of information about menopause And so this might not be super helpful for the guys,
Mm.
other than like if you have a woman in your life who is going through this, it's
Mm.
important to know that there are some
Yeah,
things that can help with it
yeah,
and
for sure.
some typical side effects. So and I have my whole regiment, to address it. But when you think about midlife, what are some of the issues that you see, and how do you
Mm.
approach them?
Yeah, yeah. So tell me if I go off piste, by the way. I'll try and remember that
I'll
that
wave at you
that
or
particular
something.
question. Yeah, do.
Be like,
I just can't just press like end of the Zoom meeting and that'll sort me
press
out.
it. No, I think it's no. Feel free to speak from your heart,
Mm,
because there is so much to this, and I don't feel like we're talking about it
mm,
enough. But
yeah.
I feel like people are starting to talk about it. So
Mm. So I feel like this piece is very, very important because in terms of what I was seeing basically was on sober forums and myself included, and then clients that I work with or people in the Love Sober community who had quite a lot of sober time were suddenly getting derailed and lapsing or really struggling when they went into their mid 40s. So
mm,
or early 40s, mid 40s. And that happened to me actually after that first year. I now know because I remember having a real distinct feeling of change. I was actually on a little sober retreat as well at the time, and I was like, whoa, everything's not right. And I think that was when my perimenopause really started to kick in. So the traditional recovery models that were there in terms of like, and even some of the new ones. So in terms of behavioralism and mindset and routines, these are all really important, but there is a foundational health piece for
yeah,
women going through that if that's not addressed, leaves us vulnerable to lapse, relapse, mental health issues, and really high suicide. That's one of when female suicide really peaks around menopause, around 50.
wow,
So all this shit is real. And so just as I trained as a coach, there wasn't very much around at the time. And then obviously I said I trained with Irene Lyon around stress. And then when I realized this was happening, um, coincidentally, there seemed to be this rise in the UK of awareness. And I train with the menopause school here to support women in menopause transition and to advocate for hormonal needs, spot symptoms, and almost like reframe the language. It's a bit like sobriety. It was a bit like, okay, well, we need to this can be great. This can be a good time for us if we are supported and have our foundational health needs supported. It's a real rite of passage for women. So
yes,
let's support this and then not live in fear of it, not struggle so much with it, not, so it's really like point name and then let's sort it out, and then
yeah,
we can celebrate. Then we can celebrate because we're still alive, right? And we're getting
yeah,
older, and that is a
yeah,
beautiful, beautiful gift. So let's just
yeah,
help support that. So, you were saying, so, what are some of the symptoms? Is what I was also finding was that a lot of people, a lot of women are kind of coming to the sober conversation, having gone, I've been fine all these years, but suddenly I this is really impacting my mental health and da, da, da. So there's this piece, this midlife piece where
yeah,
we're like, okay, it feels to me as a feminist like it was, it would have really upset me before I got sober. I've just gone, it's just not fair, because the blokes are still doing it. But and it's not, I hate that thing about men can do something, but women can't do
oh yeah,
this.
no, no,
However, there is that element of female physiology where this is just disastrous for us. So let's look after
yeah,
ourselves and really nurture, support, and advocate for our real needs in that.
yeah. What are some of the symptoms that you see? I mean, I can name
Symptoms.
off a few symptoms of,
Yeah. So, and it is symptom led. I don't know what it is like in the US for getting HRT, but I was sent away by a 12-year-old doctor when I turned up and said, I've got mood swings, you know,
Mood swings. Okay.
mood swings. A lot of people don't get the hot flushes, but you can get the hot flushes.
Yeah.
I'll have to get my list out. There's
I
so
can name
many.
it. I
There's
can
like,
actually
yeah,
name a few that were really up for me. Was like brain fog,
yeah,
fatigue,
yeah,
lack of sexual desire. I joke around. It's not really funny, but I was like, oh, I'm dead from the neck down,
yeah.
And it wasn't something that was within my control, and I wasn't suffering from that, but my husband was. He was suffering, girl. Oh, it's terrible for him. And then
Yeah,
and then truth be told, I was suffering. There was pain involved. And I was like, why
yeah,
would I want to do that anymore? That's painful. Like it
mm,
wasn't like it used to be. And there was an element of shame around it or embarrassment
mm,
that like somehow I think I felt like it attacked my self-worth,
mm,
right? As a woman, that I wasn't like this frisky,
yeah,
you know, I don't want to say gross words, but anyway, that I wasn't how I used to be.
mm,
And there was some shame involved in that. And just what else? Um, yeah, I think that was mostly it. And when I went to my doctors, they were both giving me the line that that is quote unquote normal,
ugh, yeah,
right? But
yeah.
I have recently been exposed to menopause specialists who
Mm.
say just because it's normal doesn't mean it's okay,
No,
right?
no,
Yeah, and
yeah,
so that's what
and
the doctors were telling me. I was like, I have this lack of
mm,
desire, and they're like, well, we can give you something for the pain, but that's just part of life, so you need to learn to accept it.
and this is, where there's a big movement in the UK. So there's all those symptoms that you said.
Yeah,
And it's not just about the symptoms. That's the thing that really shocked me, is basically about women's long-term health. Okay.
yeah,
So we need estrogen. So we're talking maybe, there's all the lifestyle things that we can do quick. Not drinking is a massive, massive one, because
yeah.
the liver needs to metabolize whatever estrogen you've got in your system. And if it's prioritizing removing alcohol, it can't do that. So we're going to get worse symptoms. We're going to get
Okay,
worse brain fog. We're going to get worse low mood. All of those are going to be worse, right? Sugar is another one that's really, really bad for us, right? But we need this. We need estrogen, or estradiol, which is the one that really drops perimenopause. We get up and down of it, and progesterone. And we need
right.
estrogen for all the 11 systems of the body. So we need it for the brain, we need it for brain function, we need it. But also, the biggest diseases that are killing women. So we've got a life expectancy longer than men, but healthy life years is, I believe it's to 67 years old for women. So we've got a real disparity in terms of life expectancy, but healthy life expectancy.
Right,
And the
right.
biggest killers of women being um, dementia, the falling with your bones from osteoporosis, bowel cancer, and there's the other one which I can't remember because I've
Is
got
it
my.
heart disease?
I think it's heart disease. It could be.
Yeah.
I'd have to check. Are all estrogen related. So
Hmm.
these, when you take HRT, if you keep your you need estrogen to protect yourself from getting those diseases. So
Okay.
we were given that whole fear thing around breast cancer, which was a fake, a fake study that's been debunked
Yeah, the
years
Women's
ago. And
Health Initiative in the US
yeah, so and
came away with
actually
some really bad.
we need that estrogen. So there's a big thing in the UK to help women advocate for HRT,
Hmm.
for the hormone replacement therapy, because actually it's good, not bad. Essentially,
Right.
that's the takeaway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so, and not everyone wants to. It's very personal, but if you're having those symptoms, then that can really, it can really alleviate them, and it can really help them. And if you've not got the history of estrogen related breast cancers in your family, then actually taking HRT is going to have a protective factor against some of the biggest killers of women.
Yeah. My
So it's a
mother
long term.
actually
Yeah.
Yeah, my mother actually died of breast cancer, so I'm afraid to take estrogen,
Yeah.
although I can take there's like a cream for like vaginal cream that
Yeah, that's
helps, and testosterone helps with creating free estrogen, which has been super helpful. Progesterone
mm,
helps with the mental fog and the night
yeah.
sweats. So I feel like every body is
Mm.
different. And so there's like different combinations that you can do
Yes.
depending on
Yeah.
your own specific. Yeah. So, and then
Yeah.
you help people with the emotional piece as well. So you advocate for the hormone replacement therapy, like whatever combination. And then there's the emotional piece too.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the, and again, like you said, it's very much it's not one size fits all. And in the UK, you can go to the GP and you'll get given the bog standard. But obviously, it's much better if you can get something tailored to yourself with a specialist. And I did that. Um, and a lot of it for me is just it's just good quality information, accurate information,
Yeah.
so that you can advocate to your healthcare provider. It's also a process of symptom tracking so that you can build a
Mm,
picture and then you can advocate for what it is. So when they go, no, no, that's fine, you go, no, actually, I've been data
that's
collecting for a
brilliant.
good 3 months and this is what's going on. So I know. Um, and just knowing what's available. So from 45, if you go to your GP, HRT should be the first line that's offered to you if you go with symptoms and menopausal symptoms, as we've discussed.
Let me ask you
Um,
about sorry to interrupt you, but I'm so curious about the symptom tracking. So you recommend three
mm,
months. So
yeah.
what thing, like how do you track and what do you track?
So how I do it, because I've got I use menopause mapping tool that is the copyright of the menopause school. It's like a journal and it breaks down the symptoms and you just like tick and you
Okay.
just check in with yourself each day. And you can do it on there's apps like Flow, and there's another one, Dr. Louise Newson has one, I can't even balance, I think it's called, where you can track your symptoms. Um, I mean, going back even before that, it's really good to do that if you're menstruating still, if you're still having your
Hmm.
periods, because again, you have, as we go up towards ovulation, say, we are more extrovert and have more energy, for example. And then going down, when you get progesterone, you're going to be more chill, you're coming down the other side. And you can structure your work around it. Like if we were really advocating for our bodies and our needs, let's schedule all those podcasts, all those high powered business meetings around then. When we got our period, we're like, no, I'm just catching up with a bit of admin. You know, that would be much better.
Yeah,
So all of
absolutely.
this reflective practice and data tracking is so
Data
useful
tracking.
for us. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for those resources for those apps because I think yeah, I don't think women know to do this. They don't know, like I didn't know to track. Like I
No.
never paid attention. Every once in a while, I'd go to my doctor and they'd be like, "When was the first day of your last period?" And after a while, I was like, "I have no idea. I don't know
Yeah.
when the last one was. I never paid attention to begin with." And so they
Mm.
really didn't track it. And what I know now is that because there's so much more education available about this, is that there's actually a window of opportunity to insert HRT. And once that window, like that window will close. Like after a certain point, like I think it's for estrogen that once that window closes, you can still take it, but
Mm.
the long-term benefits of
Yeah.
like dementia prevention actually diminishes. So it's really important
Yeah,
that women
that's right.
track not only their cycles, but I love this idea of the checklist, like the symptoms. And
Yeah.
that goes along with, I love that the title of your book was Love Yourself Sober, because in my mind, healing really starts with loving yourself, like
Mm.
really learning to love yourself. I think as women, we have so much criticism and I mean, you just can't win. If you lose too much weight, then people accuse you of having a eating disorder. If you're too heavy, they criticize you for not. I mean, there's just no winning for as women. So I think very natural for women to have low self-esteem.
Mm.
So the whole foundation for healing is learning to love yourself. And then if we could just I don't know if there's more that you want to say about menopause, but I do want to talk about your other book too.
Yeah, and I just to speak to that though, and this really is that sobriety piece, and then going into recovery is that foundational, because I
Yeah.
feel like that was the first important boundary that I
Yeah.
said no to. No, I'm going to prioritize myself. I'm going to put myself in the
Mm,
picture. I can then gather that I can get to know myself day in, day out so that I know, because how do we love ourselves without knowing ourselves as
yes.
well, right? So all of these are tools to know ourselves and our needs better, whether it's that journaling, checking in with friends, that reflective practice that stops the gaze being out there and stops it all of our intel coming from outside as we do by women, like you say, we can't win, there's so much noise. So we create that boundary and we check in with ourselves, and that is our guide, that is our witness, that is our empowerment. And these are good tools to do that
Yeah, no, that's
for me.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, knowing yourself. And I was thinking when I was kind of taking notes, getting to know ourselves, getting to know the true selves, because there is that inner critic voice that's just really telling us lies that
Yeah.
leaves out all the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So focusing on
Yeah.
the good focusing on the good aspects, what you think
Yeah.
about, you bring about. So if
Yeah.
you're focusing on your good qualities, then I think that makes it easier for us to really love and appreciate ourselves by taking those positive actions.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things that I see as another tool, but the second book that y'all wrote, remind me of the title of that as well.
That is Love
So
Your Sober
pretty.
Year.
Love
I
Your
know,
Sober.
it's so pretty.
So beautiful. If you're not on YouTube, you
So,
should be, because these books are amazing.
so it's a very dark blue cover, like lapis lazuli blue with the gold illustrations. And it's funny
Very
because
celestial.
this it is, isn't it? It is very celestial, and it's got the sun and the moon, and basically, it's sort of grown up. And so I would say that this book is very much about the maintenance bit, all of those tools
Yeah.
for ongoing, that recovery, that self-care. But it's very much about a sustainable living, sustainable sobriety by living in tune with the seasons, like this
Yeah.
idea that everything in nature is cycles, it's seasons, which kind of makes sense with the menopause piece. This is a season of our lives, so we're not
Yeah.
in that early bloom bit. We're in that kind of maturing, that sort of that. So we're going to need different tools for each season. So we can look at it in terms of physical seasons: spring, autumn, summer, winter.
Yeah.
We can look at it in terms of seasons of our lives.
Yeah.
I very much feel like I remember in the first year of my sobriety, I really needed to update my toolkit every season, because what
Yeah.
cut it in the autumn wouldn't cut it in the summer. Because I was like, sun triggers beer gardens. In the UK, it's like, I can't have a hot chocolate. I'm like, ah. So, so
Yeah.
those are real practical,
Mm,
practical, practical tools for each season. And the idea for the book is that there's weekly topics and weekly journaling prompts around the kind of the literal the seasons, but also the kind of vibe of them. So, for example, we look at different cycles. We try to be really clever about this, right? So, say, for example, the stress cycle. So, when we've got fight, flight, fawn, or freeze response,
mhm.
okay, which is really important for us to know, right? That dysregulation. If our nervous systems are dysregulated, we get triggered, and then we get triggered to addictive behaviors, right?
Yeah.
So spring feels like fawn to me. So that, like,
Ah,
little baby fawn, where we're like, so we go into the stress cycle and the fawn response, and how to be kind to ourselves if we're in fawn response in the spring. In the summer, that feels like raw, angry, heat,
yeah.
rage, overwhelm, fight response. So how do we dial down that real hot, like,
Mm,
and in the winter it's like freeze response. So we also, and I was thinking about the kind of element of what might be really beautiful and nurturing. So for me, winter could be around the fire. And so there's a
Mm.
thing about telling our stories and storytelling,
Oh,
finding our
that's so good.
sparkle. Yes, so how do we tell our story and the power of community and storytelling? We've put in winter because that feels really nice and nurturing. So
Yeah.
that's the idea behind the book, that you can just dip in and out if you want different tools, or you could follow it, if that's your jam
Yeah.
as well, sort of chronologically.
I love a good journal prompt because sometimes other people will have questions that don't even come to mind. And I sort of love this idea that, if you already had the answer, you would have
Mm.
done the thing
Yeah,
already, right? But
yeah.
sometimes there's like a missing piece.
Mm,
And just being able to hear how other people think of things, maybe it's a turn of phrase or a
mm,
different perspective that actually allows me to go inward, check my own information to
yeah,
see if maybe there's something different there that I can absorb and then take a different action. I feel like everything starts with like your beliefs, your thoughts, because then that's the place that we make decisions and take action from. So I
yeah.
love a good journal prompt.
Yeah, because again, this goes back to that kind of cycles and spirals where things land differently. We can
Hmm.
come to something in our 30s, we come to a similar thing in our 40s, it will feel different and it will be different, it will land differently. Similar with the journaling prompt, something it might land, and then like months later, you've metabolized it in a different
Hmm.
way. You've experienced a whole other year of your life, and it's going to land perhaps in a more rich way or just in a different way. It's like, so I know what you mean. I think that's what I'm trying to say is like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
we can't always, I don't know, as women, like sometimes I forget that I can go elsewhere. Like I'm loving Liz Gilbert at
Oh
the
my gosh.
moment, right? Because I know, so Dufflin Lammers,
Yeah.
who's another lovely sober sis, so she's working with me on Love Sober Life School, which again we'll talk about.
Oh,
But
nice.
so she was talking about the letters from love and
Oh, yeah.
starting doing that journaling prompt. Now I'm starting to do that journaling prompt in the morning,
Me
which is
too.
dear love, what would you have me know today? Oh, the sobbing that is going on in West Sussex.
Is that where you are? I've been doing that too because
Have
sometimes I'm
you?
like, yeah. Well, I had her on the podcast, and then I've been following her Substack,
Yeah.
and she's just such a sweet and precious soul. Um, and but what an interesting idea. It's like, what would love say to me? What would unconditional love say to me? So sometimes, like yesterday morning was, dear God, what would you have me know about this? I have a situation that I was super triggered about. And I was like, what would you have me know about this? And then writing to myself from
Yeah.
unconditional love, it was like, oh,
So
you
simple,
don't
but
have to.
so powerful. Sorry,
So
go on.
powerful. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was just really powerful. It was so nurturing. It's like, I forget that I don't have to prove myself to anybody. Like if somebody misunderstands me, it's not my job to correct them. It's like you get to have whatever interpretation of me that you want.
Yeah.
And there is nothing that I don't need anything from you, really. I don't need approval. I don't need your money. I don't need anything. I'm good. And I
So
forget that.
badass.
I forget
Yeah.
that there's like this, there was a situation, I should probably talk about it, but there was a situation where I got a really good interview and I was excited about it and I posted about it on social media, but I used the wrong picture. Turns out the picture I used was a AI generated image. And the somebody from the team reached out to me very alarmed and wanted me to take it down immediately, which I did. It was like, oh, my mistake. What picture would you like me to use? And they're like, let's just put the interview on hold. And I had already announced it to my audience. So it sent me into this weird shame spiral. I mean, I don't need this interview. It's fine. Like, no big deal. But it was the feeling of being misunderstood, or I guess they had had a scare where somebody used this person's images and created a fake Instagram account and was soliciting their followers. And somehow I was linked in that experience. And so I felt like they thought I was some sort of scammer because I made a mistake and used the wrong
Mm.
image. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, I was embarrassed because I already
Yeah.
announced it, and they were just like,
Mhm.
it sent me into this whole shame spiral. So I really had to go to that letter from unconditional love to metabolize that experience. And it was like, oh, that's right. It had nothing to do with me. I was taking it very personally, but it
Yeah.
had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, my power, my validation, all that comes from within, not whether this person knows
Mhm.
who I am or not. Because there was a part of me that was like, don't you know who I am? All I do is try to, all I do, I'm a helper. All I do is try to help people. I'm not here to hurt anybody.
Yeah,
That's not who I
yeah.
am. I'm not
So
trying to
yeah,
hurt
that
anyone.
misunderstanding and the sort of injustice of it, isn't it? It's that
Injustice
like,
and the
yeah,
embarrassment. And but it
oh
was weird
darling.
how like it really hit a nerve. But the solution was to go to love. Like I was in
Yeah.
fear. The solution was to go to
Oh,
love.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great practice.
It is a great practice. It reminds me a little bit of when you were talking about that it sort of can very, very quickly resize a problem. It can
Mm.
shift from the reactivity, can't it, to that different perspective. It's like the coaching tool, resourceful selves. I was talking to my husband about this the other day because we've got a
Oh, tell me
particular
about that.
issue. So that is just, but I think, Liz, I think this is more powerful, to be honest, that
Yeah.
what you just said. But it's if you've got a problem that you need to solve, or a goal or an issue, like whatever, a quandary. So you've got that in the middle, you put it on a piece of paper on the floor, what it is, and then you've got yourself, like what I think about that. And then you kind of maybe have someone who you're a judge, what else? A teacher, a football coach, a something or whatever, or your best friend. And then you would go and you would stand on these pitches of
Oh,
paper and say, what do you imagine they would have to say about it? And
I
it's
love that.
just that, like, getting out of our way, that bit of cognitive flexibility, and that able to the perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Would
love that too. That's really
hmm,
good. I
that'd be
like
quite a
that.
good game. I quite like
I
that.
know,
So
right? Yeah.
let's
So
play
good.
resourceful selves, kids.
Oh
I'd
my
be
God.
like, yeah, right, all right.
Yeah, right, mom. So funny. So tell me, you kind of touched on it. Tell me about it's very close to mine, Sober Life School. You have Sober Life School. I
Yeah, great minds, right?
don't know. Love
We're
Sober Life
cute.
School. I like the alliteration of that. So it's
Mm,
LS.
yeah, it is. LSLS. Spring Summer 24. Spring Summer 24. So
Okay.
been doing this for about 4 years, I think, 4 or 5 years now. It's a 3-month group program. And it's basically we have daily content. So you get a
Nice.
course, an online course, cycle through the weeks of kind of building basic sort of habit change. So finding
Mm,
our feet, we look at relationships and boundaries, we look at our routines, we look at our trigger times. It's very much focused on that mum wine, woman wine culture
mm,
thing about stress in the nervous system, wine o'clock, that kind of language that I've
mhm.
kind of grown up with in the UK. Um, we then go through to the idea is that to really create what we're talking about, that toolkit of stuff that makes us feel abundant, that helps with the challenges. So troubleshooting this, what do I do when I socialize? Get your 3 drinks on board, let the host know if you can, get a wing woman, leave early, so practical tools. But then also then we go into the hormone piece, the
Mhm.
stress piece. So all those bits. And then we also look at the science of happiness. So the keys of or flow, play, creativity, self-compassion practice. So some of that deeper kind of toolkit. And that sounds like a lot, and it kind of is, but it's very bite-sized each day because we know that we do one day at a time. Like we know that. So we have to
Yeah.
checking in, data collecting, measuring
Mhm.
progress. We have a group call on a Sunday. So connect and reflect
Ah,
sessions. We do it with the group. And then if something really chimes with you, there's a library of resources of like TED Talks, of further reading and everything. And you get it for life. So that's the Love Sober Life School.
Oh,
It's
so
probably my
good.
favorite thing to do. I love it. I love being with women for that amount of time, seeing
Yeah.
the alchemy of the group, and seeing it land is like probably my biggest, happiest thing. Um,
Oh,
and I do it with Duflin Lammers, who is an awesome relationship and recovery coach. So I very much focus on habit change, midlife piece, sobriety. She comes in with the boundaries and the relationships. So
oh, she's so good with relation. No, so she was
she's
on the
amazing.
podcast too, and we talked extensively about attachment theory and
Hmm.
all that stuff. So I love her. She's amazing. I got to see her a couple times. I got to see her in Paris.
Oh, Paris. When were you in Paris?
We were in Paris. It was a year ago in September for our 25th wedding anniversary. Yeah, it was amazing.
Amazing.
So her and her partner, I never say his name right, but I want to call him Benjamin.
Benjamin.
Yeah,
Benjamin.
Benjamin. For us Yanks.
Oh,
But
amazing.
no, it was yeah, she's a beautiful soul. I'm so glad that you
Cheers.
two have paired up and you're doing this. Is it 12 weeks, the
Yeah.
course, and then you have lifetime access?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. No, and
Oh,
that's
and
oh, go
with that,
ahead.
you also get to because Love Sober Community.
Mm,
It's a group of amazing, amazing women. We got a secret Facebook group and peer support meetings. So if you do Love Sober Life School, you also get that. So you get a ton of support, peer
yeah.
support meetings. I do a monthly call, lots of chat in the group. So it's robust. It's not. We got to be we've got to be really what sort of have integrity, haven't we, around?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a good amount of support. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that it's consumable, that it's not overwhelming, but
Yeah,
it I mean, the beginning phase of recovery often is overwhelming, but it's just like anything else that once you kind of get into a routine and absorb the information, it becomes second nature.
yeah,
And 12 weeks is a really good amount of time to be able to just know that the answers you need are coming and to
yeah,
have structure and support through the whole
yeah.
thing. It's really important. It's a really important transition. And I can see how this would be especially helpful for women in midlife as they go
Mm.
through this process. The change, as we do you guys call it the change too?
Yeah. Yeah. And what is it we've got a brilliant thing. We've got exciting things in the UK. I'm going to kind of big up other people's things now, but it's sort of almost like two movements. There's the kind of real kind of hot menopause, where everyone's still looking really hot and doing loads of weight training. And then
Yeah.
we've got this kind of psycho-spiritual aspect, which is
Yeah.
things like Dr. Sharon Blackie, who does a program called Haggitude, which is very much about elderhood. And I know
That's
Haggitude,
that's
but
hilarious.
it's quite exciting in the UK at the moment in terms of that. And I feel like the two worlds can really come together. I feel like we can
Yeah.
still be like getting our tattoos and doing our yoga and going out to kind of sober clubbing if we can be bothered, maybe during the daytime. But also having a bit of a women's circle and a bit of a witchiness going on. I
Yeah.
like to bring it all together.
I like to bring it. I
Have a
mean,
little bit.
I feel like it's the fall, like the menopause
Yeah.
season is like the fall,
It
and that
is.
is traditionally
It's
a time
yeah.
for reaping, right? And,
Yeah.
it's so nice to be able to have access to hormone replacement therapy. I got my libido back. Like we are
Yeah.
having a second honeymoon up in here. I won't bore you with the details. And our kids are leaving the house, like they're gone. One's at college and the other, is working and going to school too, but still lives here. But it's just, man,
You're having a great time.
we are having a good old time. We have more money than we've ever had. We have more
Yeah.
space. Like this is a time
This is a
of,
good time.
this is a good time.
Mm.
Once you I feel like all I needed was a little bit of hormones and life is good. Life is good again.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that. I love that. But you know what you've just reminded me of is that in Chinese medicine, so it's referred to as the second spring. So you
Oh.
go through the fall and go into winter, but then we come through it and we have our second spring, which I think is really beautiful. Which
Ooh.
it sounds like you're having your yeah, little bit
We
of a
are
second spring,
a
summer.
second spring. Yes. So fun. Love it all.
Mm.
Well, gosh, this has been so enlightening. I'm so glad we're talking about this and bringing all these solutions forward so that people
Mm.
can, pick and choose what works for them.
Yeah.
And, for the men, it's like there is hope. It's
You will
not
get
just
laid again.
you
You
will get
will
laid
get laid
again.
again.
Yeah. You can have your wife can have a second spring. Things can get good again. So good, amazing work that you're doing. Thank you so much for being a bright light in the world. It's definitely needed.
Oh, it's been so lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much. There's a fly here. I'm not having a hot flush. I am a bit pink, right? What is going on with that?
I think I thought it was your sweater.
Oh,
It's
what is
beautiful.
this?
It's a
Okay.
beautiful blush.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, my dear. Well,
Thank
thank you so
you.
much. And I hope to talk to you again real soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to talk to you. Bye, Arlena.
One last thing before you go, if you enjoyed the podcast today, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review. And if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast and help me keep the lights on, you can do so by visiting odatchat.com. There's a donation button or membership button on the right-hand side. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.